Well, I think there is always been a bit of an anti-trade sentiment, and today trade has been made equal to globalization, and globalization is being portrayed as the cause of all ills in the world. And in my view, we have to be careful with how we analyze this. I think it is clear that changes in this world are moving very, very fast. You've got technology that is moving at a pace that is incredibly fast. You've got connectivity, transport, including transport of merchandise that is going very, very fast. But you also have habits that are moving very, very fast, and people that are moving around the world with changes in cultures, with changes in traditions. And I think all of this is creating a bit of angst, a bit of fear in many populations who see a change in the way the world they knew is moving. I think it is also fair to say that in this huge transformation that, let's not forget, has lifted millions out of poverty, that has been an immense force for good, has also affected negatively many, many citizens. So I think my answer to your very complex question, if I had to do this in a very simple way, I would say, let's be careful not to confuse trade with globalization. Is part of globalization, but it's much bigger than that. We can't stop trade, but we cannot stop technology. I don't think any of us would want to give up our mobile phones. So it's here to stay. The second thing I would say is that those countries that have paid more attention to distributing the benefits of integration, of economic integration, of social economic integration, have been more successful at managing anti-trade sentiments. The game of comparative advantages that is at the heart of any economy is constantly changing. What was true 10, 20 years ago, when there was no internet penetration and very little mobile penetration, is no longer true today. Whomever had a comparative advantage that was based on cheap labor in the past, for example China, is very difficult to maintain that comparative advantage the moment you start paying better salaries to the workers. So I think there is an inevitable constant adjustment in comparative advantages. And thus, the only difficulty that I see compared to the past is that this adjustment is becoming also faster, is coming faster. In the past, maybe your comparative advantage could last 30, 40, 50 years. Today, it may just simply last 3 years. And this poses challenges for governments because they need to support labor, skills of labor, mobility of labor, retraining of labor. They need to decide on infrastructure. They need to decide on investments. And they need to do all of this thinking where will be their comparative advantage. And this is looking more at the medium to long term, whereas many of our governments are here for the short, at best, medium term. So I think what's important is that governments understand that their policies, that they are not party policies, they are country policies, they are national policies. Education is one. You cannot have a successful education system if you do not think that it is a national priority, not the party priority, not the priority of the opposition. It's a national priority. So, in my view, again, if I look at countries that are sailing well in this in this constantly changing world, are the countries that are investing very heavily in social safety nets and in education. I think what we are discovering today is there is a huge dimension of trade called South-South trade. In the past, South-South trade was at best 10% of world trade. Today, we're moving closer to South-South being close to 30% of international trade. What this means is that there are huge opportunities to be tapped into in the South. This is very important for a country like Sri Lanka. And this is why I understand the priority of the government of starting trade agreements with some of its big neighbors in the South, with India, with Singapore, with China. It reflects the fact that there are huge opportunities for Sri Lanka in trading with these countries that are also in the South, like Sri Lanka is. So huge opportunities. Of course, again, the question is how to leverage these opportunities. As I've been saying, in the world Export Development Forum that Sri Lanka has hosted, as I've been saying, it's one thing to make trade possible, which is what these trade agreements do. It's another thing to make trade happen. So I think the priority of putting a bit more emphasis on the South is the right priority and should be supported. I think Sri Lanka has a very clear trade policy strategy, and we heard this from the horse's mouth. The Prime Minister was at the World Export Development Forum, and he outlined very clearly the vision Sri Lanka has for integrating more in international trade. I think the key question now is how to translate this vision on the ground, and I think it will be as important as the vision. The vision is a very important piece because it helps to align all actors at home and abroad into what is Sri Lanka's priority. But the most important thing now is to make sure this vision is implemented on the ground. That all the actors, whether it's the Bureau of Investments, whether it's the EDB, the Export Development Board of Sri Lanka, whether it's the business community, can pool their efforts to implementing this agreement to generate more exporters for Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan exporters have stagnated, and we need to make sure that this vision is accompanied by, let's say, the 10,000 new Sri Lankan exporters, the 100,000 new Sri Lankan exporters that will benefit from these new market opportunities that the vision will offer them.